complaining about the Midnight Season 2 dungeon pool isn't really unique. It was a pretty unanimous feeling across the vocal parts of the WoW community. No one was excited about this selection of returning dungeons. And even though I generally like to stay positive and do think that these dungeons will turn out to be fine, I am going to share my thoughts on this. Actually, not my thoughts about the chosen dungeons, the internet has handled that, but my selection of dungeons that would have been a much better fit for 12.1. Obviously, the 4 dungeons that launched with Midnight but weren't in the Season 1 pool should be part of the second season, and getting an entirely new dungeon is fantastic. But there are other options that would just be so much more fun. So I'm going to tell you what those options are. But I hear you say, Ease, what are you doing? 12.1 is already live. This isn't going to change anything for Season 2. Is this just you yelling into the void, or worse, making a video to sate your never-ending desire for validation and approval from strangers online? Are you that desperate to feel part of something greater than yourself, that you will spout meaningless nonsense that truly does not make the world or the WoW community any wiser or better off than if you hadn't shared your opinion? And yes, that's the case. But also, I think this is fun. This game is fun, and I like talking about it. Even if it is meaningless banter that won't change anything, at least I had fun making it. Also, I spent a lot of time on a Season 2 dungeon pool speculation video, recorded most of it, and was in the process of editing the video when they announced 12.1 and the actual dungeon pool. And it took me a while of self-pity and wallowing in my lost time before I figured out what to salvage out of that video and turn it into this. So here we go. Dungeon number 1. Blizzard had the opportunity to do the funniest thing. We've progressively been getting older and older dungeons in Mythic Plus, and Pit of Saron in Season 1 pretty much blows any of the old dungeons look too old arguments out of the water. Sure, the updated NPC models help, but also, look at this. Now, let me be clear, I like this. I am not bothered by the dungeon looking dated, especially as someone who was playing when this dungeon was current content. And that brings me to this very funny thing that Blizzard could have done. We could have had the same dungeon 2 seasons in a row, or at least 2 dungeons with the same name. I bring you the original Magister's Terrace. Granted, the graphic difference is stark, even more so than Pit of Saron. The routes would be extremely linear aside from the 2 courtyards, but that's the case with most of the Season 2 dungeons anyway, and we would most likely need to listen to all of Kael'thas's monologue every time we run the dungeon, because Blizzard hates cutting down RP. But on the other hand, it really does carry the OG Blood Elf aesthetic, and you would get to relive the glory days of WoW when it was about Warcraft, not Lovecraft.
Anvina, I love you! Focus on my voice!
Kalik? Kalik?
Yes, Anvina! Let fate embrace you now!
The nightmare is over! The spell is broken! Goodbye, Kalik, my love!
Goodbye, Anvina, my love. Few will remember your name.
Remember the sun well!
And frankly, I think it would have been worth it just for the meme. Maybe in Season 3? Dungeon number 2. So hear me out, I actually don't mind that we're getting Temple of Sethraliss in Season 2. Is it my favorite dungeon from BFA? Not by any stretch of the imagination, but it does fit extremely well with the 12.1 snake theme. The Sethraki are fan favorites, and even though we'll never get them as a playable race, sorry guys, it's nice to see them again, even if it is just to bash their faces in. Mechanically, there are some things to be desired, but at this point the dev team has addressed a lot of the problems, including making the bosses more interesting and reworking the giant snake eyeball crystal gauntlet. And I've heard routing isn't going to be much of an issue because you kinda have to press W throughout the whole dungeon to get the count you need. But is it so bad to have one dungeon, or several, where you don't have to choose what packs to take, but only focus on which packs to take together? I'm gonna leave this one to the pros, like Raider.io's weekly routes and Keystone Guru, but I think everything is going to be alright. And yes, I know I said I had better options than what they gave us, but I have to keep something for my Season 3 dungeon pool speculation video. How about a tease? All I'll say is Naga, and it's not the dungeon you think it is. Dungeon number 3. The Amani are very clearly the main focus in this patch, and so of course there has to be at least one troll dungeon. They gave us King's Rest. And if you want to know my thoughts about King's Rest, let's just say that in the script of my speculation video about the Season 2 dungeon pool, I said, I'll cut my hand off before I do King's Rest again, so let's come up with a better option. There are so many good ones. Zul'Farrak is a top contender, but I think Vanilla is a little too old for them to consider just yet. Cataclysm's version of Zul'Aman would be a no-brainer, but I think having a dungeon with 6 bosses is pushing it a bit far from Mythic Plus. Same goes for Zul'Gurub. That still leaves us with a slew of troll dungeons, but we've already had a Tal Dazar in Season 3 of Dragonflight. I'll cut my hand off before I do King's Rest again. There it is. And the other side is great, but not quite troll-themed enough. So it's down to Drak'Tharon Keep and Gundrak. And in my head, it's pretty clear that Gundrak would be the better fit for Mythic Plus. There's a nice amount of routing options, plenty of chances to pull trash together with the bosses, and if you cut out the heroic-only optional boss Ek the Ferocious, you're left with a nice 4-boss dungeon. Aesthetics are great, vibes are high, and most importantly, Ulatek is here. Obviously, this isn't Ulatek, but it would just be fitting, you know? If 15 years after Jesse Cox asked about this snake tail at BlizzCon, we would finally get a better answer than,
"That's the first sign of the return of the Titans, and Medivh will be leading them."
Actually, with The Last Titan coming up, that would be fine too, if that turns out to be the case. So there you have it. My ideal selection of dungeons for Mythic Plus in Season 2 of Midnight would be Altar of Fangs, Denim Nalarak, Murder Row, The Blinding Veil, Voidscar Arena, Magister's Terrace, TPC version, Temple of Sethraliss, and Gundrak. These are by far the best options. Trust me, I've done the math, I've checked the research. Logically, there is no other set of dungeons that could better represent Season 2. This is definitely not just my own thoughts and preferences and me sitting in my car on the way to work daydreaming about how I want to wander the halls of Gundrak again. This is the definite, undisputed list. But let's say there was wiggle room to replace, I don't know, 1 or 2 of these. What dungeons would you have wanted to see in Season 2 of Midnight? Do you want more old dungeons, or would you prefer to stick to more modern expansions? Let me know in the comments below, and if you thought this video was even a little bit fun, consider subscribing for more of them. Until next time, take care.